Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
New COVID-19 vaccines are supposed to be free, but some people are getting stuck with a bill. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The shots are covered with or without private insurance under the federal government's emergency use authorization. But a KPBS viewer told us he was charged for the vaccine. And reporter Melissa May looked into it and found out he's not the only one.
While people in San Diego are already getting their doses of the updated vaccine, it's not without a few challenges. A viewer told KPBS he was charged $191 at a CVS in La Jolla, and his wife was also charged at a CVS in Encinitas, despite both having health insurance. CVS tells KPBS some insurance companies may not yet be set up to cover the updated COVID-19 vaccines, but people can be reimbursed. Social epidemiologist Rachel Fielding Miller got her updated vaccine dose today and was not charged. She says the fact that it's free is important.
All of these vaccines should be accessible, and there are mechanisms to make them accessible, but the more friction that you throw up between people and a vaccine, the less likely people are going to be to get vaccinated, which is not what we want.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it's also hearing about issues with insurers not covering the new vaccine. They say they are reminding insurance plans that they, quote, must cover without cost sharing any COVID-19 vaccine authorized under an emergency use authorization. Fielding Miller says lowering the barriers to getting a vaccine is critical to public health.
If you can't just take off work because there's an appointment, that's a barrier. If you're worried that it's going to cost money and you don't know how to negotiate with your healthcare provider to get that money repaid, that's a barrier. And so again, all of these barriers, some people are going to have some of them, but certain people are going to have all of them. So the more that we can remove barriers and make it easier for people to keep themselves healthy, the better it's going to be for everybody.
If you've been charged for the updated COVID-19 vaccine, a Health and Human Services spokesperson says that's a mistake and to reach out to your health insurance provider. Melissa May, KPBS News.
San Diego County's Transportation Planning Agency will not consider charging drivers by the mile to fund public transit. But KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says there are still big open questions on how to pay for projects that fight climate change.
San Diego and California have pledged to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions in roughly the next 2 decades. That's what scientists say is necessary to avert the most catastrophic and deadly impacts of climate change. But net zero emissions will mean deep reductions in car travel, and leaders face the challenge of how to pay for improvements to alternatives like public transit. SANDAG, the county's transportation planning agency, had been considering a 2-cent charge for every mile people drive in their cars. The policy, called the road user charge, was meant to discourage driving while also raising money to make transit faster, safer, and cheaper. But the road user charge faced a fierce backlash, primarily from Republicans. 2 years ago, the local leaders on SANDAG's board voted to abandon the policy. A group of them gathered before Friday's board meeting, saying it should never be reconsidered.
I cannot personally support a fee or a tax that will be charged to all car drivers that doesn't even maintain or build any lanes or highways.
SANDAG board members later voted to restate their opposition to the road user charge, but several also acknowledged they still need to find an alternative source of revenue to pay for maintaining and improving infrastructure, especially as more people drive electric vehicles and stop paying gas taxes.
I am all for having an informed conversation about ways to equitably pay for our road system. Those people who are driving Teslas, they don't really contribute much to our road system.
The stakes are high for Sandag's board members. If they can't agree on a transportation plan that improves transit and reduces driving, San Diego County could lose access to state and federal subsidies that pay for everything from freeways to public transit to pothole repair. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Well, it's going to be beautiful across a lot of the Southwest, warm and dry as we start the weekend, and that trend is going to stick around over these next few days. But of course, all good things must come to an end. We are tracking a potential cool down as we head into the later half of the week. We'll break that down more for you, and we'll tell you where temperatures go over these next few days.
A San Diego County supervisor is calling for the board to declare a humanitarian crisis over the influx of migrants at the border. In a statement released today, Supervisor Jim Desmond says over 5,000 migrants have been dropped off at transit stations over the last 10 days. He adds that the county already faces a homelessness crisis, and this will only exacerbate the issue. Desmond has placed an item on next Tuesday's board meeting agenda to declare the situation as a humanitarian crisis and call for urgent federal assistance. Volunteers in North County are offering their time to help dozens of migrants passing through San Diego. Logan Governman isn't a taxi or rideshare driver, but for the past week, his life has consisted of driving through traffic, helping connect migrants with their sponsor families at the airport. It's part of an effort by nonprofit Interfaith Community Services. Governman says his new duties allow him to make connections that he never anticipated.
As soon as we got in, I asked them to put on their favorite music. It was honestly a party. They started, recording. They were singing along to Chris Brown. They had told me that since they left Guinea, I was the first person that treated them with kindness and compassion.
And Governman says Interfaith plans to continue drop-offs to the airport for as long as the situation continues. It was a busy week for news at our border, and it goes beyond the migrant situation. From slower travel times for commuters to rising rents in Tijuana, it's all part of our discussion on this week's KPBS Roundtable, and you can stream it as a podcast on all major platforms and at kpbs.org. The Government Accountability Office found unsafe conditions in military barracks across the country after visiting 10 bases, including some here in San Diego. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer has more.
The new GAO report released this week says thousands of junior U.S. service members live in military barracks that pose health and safety risks, and the Pentagon isn't doing enough about it. The problems range from poor personal privacy for service members, broken windows and fire systems, to mold and pests. Inspectors toured facilities at 10 bases, including 4 in San Diego, Camp Pendleton, the Marine Recruit Depot, and Naval Bases San Diego and Coronado. But the report doesn't say which installations had problems, only that 7 of the 10 visited had barracks needing improvements. Navy Region Southwest manages all the barracks on San Diego's Navy bases. A spokesperson told KPBS in an email that sailors rate local barracks highly and that no sailors are assigned to barracks not up to standards. The report includes photos of privately managed barracks at Naval Base San Diego and notes sailors told them they were satisfied with their condition. A spokesperson for Marine Corps Installations West at Camp Pendleton did not respond to questions about the report. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
A San Diego federal judge has once again blocked California's ban on gun magazines that hold more than 10 bullets. U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez first ruled the law unconstitutional in 2017, and after appeals, the case went before the U.S. Supreme Court, which sent it back to lower courts last year. Well, today, Benitez ruled again in favor of gun owners, saying the ban violates the Second Amendment. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said his office will appeal. And we are 8 days away from a government shutdown if Congress fails to pass funding bills to keep it running. Mike Valerio has more on what that would mean for the country.
It's a looming shutdown, and Republicans and Democrats agree a potential congressional meltdown.
Let's face it. Your job when you come here is not to shut the government down. It's to run the government more efficiently. And by shutting it down, that's a cop-out.
With the clock ticking towards midnight Eastern, October 1st, when the federal government runs out of money, there's uncertainty on Capitol Hill about how to pass 11 spending bills or a short-term funding extension through both the House and the Senate.
I think our focus right now is to make sure we get the three most important bills across. That's our defense. Secondly, our border. And third, make sure we protect our veterans.
Halting the process, hardline Republicans demanding major spending cuts, revolting against House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Many Democrats are now doubtful the Speaker can come up with a solution in time.
No, I don't think he really has the whole thing figured out, to be honest. And even if he did, it wouldn't be an optimal solution or one that would sustain a vote from the Senate side as well.
The federal government is now preparing for a potential shutdown, asking agencies to review plans on which employees could be furloughed and which ones are considered essential. Those workers could stay on the job without pay, including air traffic controllers, Secret Service agents, FBI personnel, and staff at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
A transgender policy led to a walkout at a Temecula high school today. Temecula Valley Unified now requires notification to parents if their child makes a change to their gender identity on campus. And this morning, about 100 students marched from Great Oak High School to a nearby park, and many of them carrying or wearing rainbow and transgender flags. The walkout was led by 16-year-old Moxie Childs, a transgender 11th grade student. He has championed equal rights for the LGBTQ+ community.
Somebody has to fight for it, and I am willing to be that somebody and make a change for other people who are like me, who feel alone and scared and afraid.
The students returned to class after the protest. School administrators had warned that any participant would be marked truant and face possible disciplinary action. KPBS reached out to the school district, which did not respond to our request for comment. Tens of thousands of Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers say they will strike if a deal isn't reached by the end of the month. Workers are calling on Kaiser to find solutions to address staffing shortages. They've been picketing at facilities here in San Diego in recent weeks. Workers notified executives today that unless an agreement is reached by September 30th, 75,000 workers across California and other states will strike. It would take place from October 4th through the 6th. Kaiser released a statement saying they would continue to bargain in good faith until a fair and equitable agreement is reached. Workers across the country and across industries have been organizing and in many cases striking. They are demanding higher pay, improved benefits, and better working conditions. Gloria Pazmino has more on what's driving workers to the picket lines.
Some progress in negotiations between auto workers and at least one of the big three.
Ford is showing that they're serious about reaching a deal.
But the ongoing dispute between the UAW and the two other major automakers, GM and Stellantis, deepening significantly on Friday.
We will shut down parts distribution until those two companies come to their senses and come to the table with a serious offer.
The strike expansion is aimed at hurting dealerships, with the hope dealership owners will ratchet up the pressure on the car makers. This comes as Hollywood writers and studios ended marathon negotiations Thursday without an agreement, as the writers' work stoppage now exceeds 20 weeks.
I'm just really hopeful because it seems like all parties are really ready to just get it done.
But these strikes aren't happening in a vacuum. From actors to delivery drivers, nurses to baristas, workers are encouraged by a tight labor market and strong economy.
I think it's all over the labor market. We're seeing stirrings of this kind.
Labor expert Ruth Milkman says a generational shift, coupled with decades of stagnant wages amid soaring corporate profits and CEO pay, is fueling concerted efforts to organize.
A lot of workers are more conscious than they were before of the injustice that they face at work and of the inequalities that exist in the society that we're living in.
In New York, I'm Gloria Pazmino.
Money is going out to more than 125,000 people who worked for Instacart starting today. It's part of a lawsuit filed by the city of San Diego that alleged that the grocery delivery company improperly classified workers as independent contractors. Instacart didn't admit wrongdoing, but agreed to pay $46.5 million. Nearly $40 million of that total is going to people who worked for the company between September of 2015 and December of 2020. payouts are based on the number of hours worked. The most active shoppers could receive over $10,000. Oceanside Museum of Art is hosting a collection of works created during the Great Depression through World War II. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando took a tour of the exhibit.
Some things need to be seen up close and in person, like Philip Evergood's New Death.
What is fascinating about his work is that it's never social realism. It is always very phantasmagoric. The way these characters, who are basically capitalists, are being caught up in the new death of the atom bomb, and there's a kind of a sense of a spidery world, and in that spidery world, it's not just the people who are plotting the destruction of the world, but also all of humanity, you might say, is being caught up.
Bram Dijkstra has a good eye for art as well as a bargain.
This is a part of our collection of what we used to call our collection of discarded art.
The art he references was part of the government-sponsored Works Progress Administration, or WPA, which provided artists with a weekly stipend in exchange for art. But as art from thousands of artists piled up, the government eventually just threw away most of it.
And it's a story that is very dramatically described in Life magazine, with photographs of a secondhand dealer finding paintings and unwinding some of these bales and having the artists themselves come back and buy for a couple of pennies their own paintings. And so the exhibit is essentially a result of about 40 years of collecting work that was basically being thrown out by a lot of different places.
Their art was described as social realism, by which they really meant socialist realism. And so this art was not only discarded, it was actually, dissed and denigrated, and the art establishment, the art professional museum establishment cooperated.
But now, Oceanside Museum is showcasing 45 paintings from the Dijkstra collection for the exhibit Art for the People, WPA-era paintings. Many of these paintings emphasize the human figure, like Harry Sternberg's Coal Miner and Family. His painting offers a critique of America, depicting the harsh life of Pennsylvania miners.
He discovered that the miners were forced to dig by the owners of the companies underneath their own houses. And the effect of that was that very often the houses would literally implode.
So one of the objectives of this collection and the show was to bring back the political dimension, but to also show that the art of the period included many different things.
The rough texture of John Costigan's wood interior contrasts dramatically with Edward Biberman's slow turn.
That has no texture, officially no texture, but the texture is there in the sense that the road becomes the texture.
So this is one of those paintings in which there is an implicit political message as opposed to explicit. Some of the viewers have said this is California noir.
When you go around in this exhibition, there are so many different textures, from very thick textures to almost no texture at all. And artists have purposes for that no texture or thick texture, and that again relates to the way in which we experience a painting.
And the best way to experience a painting is always by seeing the authentic object, says Oceanside Museum of Art's Executive Director, Maria Mingalone.
So you can experience things in print or in digital formats, but there is nothing like literally being in front of a painting or in front of a work of art. And the experience that you have is intangible.
The Dijkstra collection serves up a diverse array of breathtaking art that has not always received the appreciation it deserves. Art for the People, WPA-era paintings, celebrates this art. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Well, let's start you off with your weather headlines. What do you need to know? Well, there's not too much to talk about because it's going to be beautiful this weekend. Dry and warm for the weekend, and that trend, well, it's going to stick around over these next few days, even well into next week. But for the late week next week, well, cool down on the way as we are dealing with more troughiness and active weather that's going to be bringing temperatures down. Now, as we take a look tonight around Metro, we're dropping down to a low of 64. Clouds and still sprinkle, especially there along the coast from Oceanside down to San Diego, even Chula Vista. Now, as we head a little bit further inland, well, we are still dealing with some low cloud cover, even across portions of the deserts. We're dropping down to 67 tonight in Borrego Springs, but as we head into Saturday, well, it's going to be warm and dry across a lot of the southwest. Where do temperatures go? Well, they rise to the mid 70s in San Diego, Oceanside, as we travel a little bit further inland. Ramona at 81, Borrego Springs just in the 90s, so not doing too bad, especially for the deserts. Borrego Springs hitting a high of 94. Mount Laguna comes in with a high of 63. Now, overall, air quality right around the Palm Springs area, not necessarily great right now. So for sensitive groups, you're going to want to take precautions. If you are in these areas, this is going to be in effect through Saturday morning. Now let's take a look at your 5-day outlook. Here along the coast, well, we aren't dealing with too much action, right? Temperatures staying steady as they do, mid 70s all week as we head into the beginning of next week too, with mostly sunny skies. Now, as we head a little bit further inland, well, temperatures rise to the 80s by Sunday, and then dip back down to the upper 70s, but still flirting with 80s at least on Monday, 83 Tuesday, 85 Wednesday, mostly sunny. Like I said, we're not dealing with too much action over these next few days, but that cool down is going to come as we head into the later half of the week. If we look at the mountains, though, you're in the clear over these next few days, just going to be a little cool, highs in the 60s, and for the deserts, well, highs remain in the 90s until we see a cool down as we head into late next week. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
The MCAS Miramar Air Show officially took off today. It is free and it's open to the public through the rest of the weekend. The Navy's Blue Angels flight team, well, they're a fan favorite every single year, and you can catch them in action at 3 o'clock tomorrow and again on Sunday. There are plenty of aircraft and other military vehicles that are on display. And there's a reminder that if you are going to the show, then backpacks and coolers are not allowed inside. Top female surfers from all around the world are in Oceanside this weekend, and they're competing in the Nissan Supergirl Surf Pro. But the event goes beyond the championship title and is intended to inspire young girls to hit the waves. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has a look at the first day of the competition.
Over 140 of the world's top female surfers will be in Oceanside competing for the Nissan Supergirl Surf Pro Championship. One of those contestants is Alyssa Spencer, an Encinitas-based pro surfer.
It's pretty cool to see how many girls come from all over, and we have all of the best girls in the world here, so it's pretty cool to come back every year and see how much everyone's progressed, and it really pushes you to just want to be better.
Spencer has competed in the Supergirl Surf Pro since she was 12. While she looks forward to competing, she says mentoring young girls at the event is one of her favorite parts of the weekend.
I love coming out of the water and having all the girls run up to you asking for autographs and pictures. I think that it's so special, and it kind of makes everything come pretty full circle for me, because I used to be one of those little girls running up to the older girls when I was younger.
And now Spencer gets to pay that forward.
I really like Alyssa Spencer because one of my surf coaches is her cousin, and she surfed with us before, and she's really nice and a great surfer.
12-year-old Teddy Gotti is participating in the Supergirl Surfing Mentorship Program. Participants get to learn and surf with professional surfers they look up to.
It's really special and a really awesome opportunity because they're really good pros and they're really nice.
Gotti says attending the event encourages her to continue practicing a sport she has grown to love, and one day come back as a pro.
Most times I surf, there's not really a lot of girls out, so it's just cool to see how many young girl surfers there are here.
And it was the lack of women-dominated surfing events that led to the creation of the Supergirl Surf Pro 17 years ago. Rick Bratman is the director of the event and calls himself a girl dad. He started the project as a labor of love for his daughters. He noticed the lack of recognition when it comes to women's sports.
The women really appreciate the fact that this is their event, it's their platform, they don't have to share time in the water with the men. Normally when they do share time in the water with the men get the better times. The women are always kind of relegated to second-tier status, and here, you know, they're on top of the world, and I think that's something that they really they love and appreciate.
He says every year the event has grown, and it's more than just about surfing.
On a broader sense, this is an event that's all about empowering women, providing opportunity and inclusion for women. So in addition to the top female surfers, you've also got 15 live concerts, you've got a female DJ competition, female esports event, about 20 free classes, female beach volleyball, speakers, panel discussions, female artists, content creators. It's really about celebrating women from a variety of different walks of life.
The event is free to attend and runs through Sunday near the Oceanside Pier. Surfing is not required. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.